you've got an email from this person who claims to be the Prince of Nigeria. You've lost that connection, you've lost the purpose of helping, and you've lost their confidence. But it's even better if you really deeply understand your customer. Find out that you're making decisions the way that big company did, or you're making decisions to take on work because you're afraid of not having work.
Thanks for joining me. And today we have in the studio with us Sri KAZA, the author of Unconvention, a small business strategy guide. He is also the former McKinsey partner, CEO, board of advisors, and small business advocate. And he joins us today on the podcast to talk about scaling without losing your soul. Sri KAZA, welcome to the podcast. It's such an honor to have you here with us.
Thanks for having me, Pyle. It's exciting to be on.
I love the topic that you chose, scaling without losing your soul. So, as we go deeper into it, your journey has spanned different roles, different industries, and now you're an entrepreneur yourself now. What is it that you went through in the journey that really made you realize that one can scale without losing their soul?
Oh, it took me a very long time in my career to recognize that either an idea, a company, or a set of people really were what defined how the business contributed to society. I'll just pick on some of my early times in McKinsey. I did maybe 7 or 8 different engagements at McKinsey where we were doing pricing work. Pricing, when I first got into it, seemed pretty formulaic. There's a whole bunch of set analyses that you do as an associate. You understand where the variances are in prices, who's willing to pay, how often you win a deal at certain prices, and how often not. And in the end, we almost always get some meaningful uptick in profit margins purely because we've helped the client, the big company, increase its prices. And I was going about some pricing work on one of my engagements where, everything, we were just following everything we were supposed to follow. Couldn't exactly see where the price benefits were. But I was mentioning to the partner on the engagement, this should be pretty easy. We do this, we'll find all the details. And he said, you're really not looking at it the right way. I said, what do you mean? Like we're following the process? He goes, you have to understand this company and where it's bringing its value from and why they're doing what they're doing. You can't just go and apply formulas to see how much money there is or how much benefit there is. And to me, I was maybe a little bit immature. I was like, well, it's a pricing study. It's formulaic. And when you pitched the study to the client, you walked in and confidently told them, we're going to get you at least 3% in revenue increase, all of which was drops to bottom line. Of course, it's a formula. And I didn't get it, but I took his advice in that particular project and kind of looked beyond just kind of the math and actually unlocked a lot of the opportunity that we did discover for the client and did the work. But it took me much longer to start to put pieces of these things together to when I got to my first smaller business, the Tax Credit Co. I was still I run this scale up before for big companies. I had a lot of McKinsey people around me and a lot of executives with MBAs around me to go and turn the screws to get something to grow. And I came out with a lot of expertise in all the small things that happen to get something to grow. But what I didn't really have was, or at least what I didn't really feel was the work of a values-driven organization or mission-driven organization. How would you go to a business? At the time I joined, it was one that was set out to help small business owners reclaim their tax credits in the U.S. If we have a small business that hires people who are on some sort of government support, there's a special tax credit they gain as an incentive to hire people off of other government programs. But most small businesses don't claim it because it's too much paperwork. They're not aware of it or many other reasons.
Yeah.
So we set out to kind of help them do this. But when working to scale that company up, my first thought was great. Just look, this is free money. Therefore, it's clearly worth it. So we should call people or reach out to people and push them to go and make this choice. It seems like a good choice to make, where you ask them, go do this work inside your office, go dig up these files, send them to us, and we'll tell you how much money there is. And if you like that amount of money, we'll go get it for you.
Okay.
And it was very mechanical. Why? Because
Yeah.
when you scale up, you want a very mechanical, repeatable process. But what we found was that these small businesses didn't really care that we were telling them about this money. And I didn't really understand like what's going on. Like why? Like it's free money.
Yeah.
We're offering to do the work. Why won't you do it? And when you'd sit in and listen in on the calls, and you have to be so you may have to be an American who's fallen for this. You may not. But imagine now you've got an email from this person who claims to be the Prince of Nigeria,
Uh-huh.
and he says, "Send me some information,
Yeah.
give you some free money."
Yeah. Yeah. I remember those emails and they were true.
So, so you've got these people who are hearing this like too good to be true kind of thing,
Yeah.
saying, I don't know if I trust this guy. We're done here.
Yeah.
And what we realized, or what I realized in that kind of trying to scale some process up, I was doing it from my own individual perspective as a corporation. We need to be efficient. We need to go and speak to the value. We need to do it quickly and get to our journey of once the customer knows about this, it's obviously a good product, they're going to take it.
Mm.
And instead, go back to kind of some of the heart and soul of what they had been doing before, which was, there's three problems to solve. One is this customer doesn't even know that they're entitled to these things. Two, they don't know what they're doing internally in the organizations that gives them access to these things. And then
Right.
three, they don't have the bandwidth to actually solve this problem, to go and get that money. But if they don't know number one, they're not thinking about number two. And if they're not thinking about number two, they're not worried about number three. And when you realize that the whole point of this was to educate and help them,
Yeah.
you go back to say, hey, look, I've got to do this at my pace, or I've got to do this at their pace of learning. Sorry,
Mm.
not
Mm.
mine as the corporate pace, but the pace of the individual business. So, realizing that you can't just automate and kind of go at speed
Mm.
because you're not thinking about things from the perspective of the buyer, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
you hold you back from scale. So it was a really big learning for me to say, I can go look at any diagrams or any internal processes and I walk the hall of any sales floor, any call center, and I can look, there's a way to scale this up. Here's the repeatable and basic tasks. Here are the technology enablers that are going to get you there. But what I had been missing, and honestly, I talk about this regularly. I hadn't fully absorbed yet what that meant. I just realized, hey, be patient, right?
Mm.
Break this thing into pieces, and then your customers are going to follow along.
Yeah.
It really got down to when I joined another company later as the president and COO. It was a lender. They also had been doing really well by working with small businesses, and it was a lending product, so it was pretty simple. My career does not only include giving away money, but in this case, we're also giving away money.
Remind me.
Not a hard product to
Right.
sell. Like, if you need money, you take it. If you don't need money, you don't take it. And if you applied for this, loan, then and you get it, you're probably going to take it, right? Um, but it was bought by a private equity firm. And a few years into their attempt to scale it up, they had done a lot of the formula that I had done in my career, which was let's automate a lot, let's make it very tech enabled, let's make sure that customers can self-serve and decisions come out quickly. So that way we would see more growth. And when I had arrived, a couple years after they had purchased it,
Mm.
the growth wasn't there. The automation was there,
Okay.
technical enablement was there, self-service was there, but there was no growth. And here's one where where I realized that prior to the private equity firm coming,
Mm.
the core cultural values of the company were we want to help these small businesses. They are out
Okay.
there doing all kinds of work. They are trying to grow their business, trying to bring some product or service to their community. And there's a reason they need some capital and they can't get it. No bank is lending them money. They don't have the assets to kind of put up for collateral. So they're really struggling to find ways to fund their
Yeah.
business. And so that's why they're reaching out to us. We have a special way to underwrite. We were a fintech, so we were using alternative data, finding different ways to get comfortable making a loan to a small business. And that was the mission, is to help them.
Mm.
But with the PE firm coming in and all the new changes, what you felt more likely was the mission was, let's get as many loans out as possible.
Okay.
Sounds almost the same, but it's completely different when you're an employee. It's completely
Absolutely.
different when
Yeah.
you're designing business processes of produce as many loans as you can or help as many people as you can. So the mindset of somebody taking a phone call, the mindset of the design of the process was, let's get a loan funded. Let's get somebody get somebody to talk to us or complete an application or finish this step.
Mm.
And when you bring back the mindset around, I was here to help. When I went through and reviewed all of our processes, what we discovered was all of the helpful stuff that was helpful to the small business, but
Mm.
not to the lender, had been removed. So to go from a long conversation and write up to go and complete an application for a loan to the very quick 15 question online thumb completion type of online loan, you lost all of the questions that framed why do you want to use this money? How do you want to make sure that you're successful with this loan? And when you lose all of that, you've lost that connection, you've lost the purpose of helping, and you've lost their confidence that this is a good product or a good loan. So we went back and we said, look, if our focus is only helping them, forget the making the loan. What would we be doing? What would we be doing is we'd be helping them think through their business problem, think about how much they really need. We
Right.
don't want them to ask for too much. We don't want to ask them for too little, right? We don't want them to ask for money when we see that there isn't a payoff for them funding whatever they want to fund. So you've now constrained it. And in fact, when you are allowed to say, I don't think we should do this product for you or this loan for you, when your sales team is allowed to say that,
Mm.
they're so much better at making sure there's a good match. Their customers actually trust them. You're actually solving real problems. And then in that particular example, the money, once you knew that this money was going to help you with your business, wasn't hard
Mm.
to convince them to take.
So, but then there
But
must be some reason, right? Because you mentioned that it's becoming so harder for small businesses and everything to get loans or to get investors. What makes it that hard? Like, is it the trust value or what is it?
well, in the US, when you go to a bank, they don't have a good way to underwrite anything except for assets.
Mm. Okay.
So with a regular consumer like you or me, if we went to a bank to borrow money, they'd
Mm.
want to know what our FICO score is, which is in the US, it's a credit score, how creditworthy you are, how likely you are to pay somebody back. And
Mm.
then how much income do you earn? And with those two things, now I know, okay, I can lend you up to a certain amount. I'll give you some ratio relative to your income. So they call it a debt to income ratio.
Mm.
And I'm going to give you pricing relative to your FICO score, which is how likely you're going to pay me back or how likely you might miss a payment.
Okay.
But when it comes to a small business, looking at their income isn't very helpful because when you look at a small business, you don't know if they're going to make that much money this year versus next year
Yeah.
versus last year.
True.
And wages are like they're in the contract or in the payroll system, but income for small business isn't there. So instead, what they do is they say, "Well, great. Do you have a piece of equipment? Like, do you have a big truck, or do you have if you're a landscaper, do you have landscaping equipment, or do you
Mm.
have if you're a I don't know if you're a restaurant or something, do you have a stove or something that we can take away from you and sell if you don't pay us back? That's a collateral for a loan. So if I've got collateral, I got a big truck or something that I can take from you after I've lent you money, then I know I can sell that. So then that means I'm not as at risk if I lend you money. So I can lend it to you for cheaper. But in the business I was in, if I lend you cash and there's nothing you give me or
Mm.
nothing you tell me I can take, and you go out of business, all the money I lent you is gone. And
Okay.
so the losses can be pretty high.
Right. But then at the same time, while they are growing and they are looking for investors, they're looking for banks, and the trust is not established, like you said, there are so many other factors, and you worked with so many
Mhm.
businesses. So a lot of times, just to get that loan, just to get that money, they compromise a lot on their principles, on their values. So what are some of the principles and values you feel they compromise, or are there other things that they compromise just to make sure that they have the money that they require in the initial
Oh,
stages specifically?
that's an interesting question. You know, I would say if it was my team talking to a small business,
Mhm.
if they sensed that the small business owner was compromising any of their values to kind of
Mm.
get the loan, we would recommend them not to. In fact, what's part of what I was writing about in my book is that you need to first start with your values and your
Mm.
purpose.
Mm.
Um, what 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 you do when you make a decision for your business, you don't have enough bandwidth to do all the analytics and all of the research that like a big company could do to say, hey, is this the smart decision or not? You really do have to many times have to work from your gut. But
Right.
small businesses have this benefit of since there's one owner,
Okay.
or at least a small ownership group, you can get aligned on what is our core set of principles.
But is it easy? Is
Excuse
it
me.
easy to recognize the values and principles that have been compromised? Like if you're zoomed out, you're looking from the
Yeah,
outside, you're an
yeah.
investor or, as their advisor, would it be easy for you to gauge that, yes, here there are compromises, this is not what they are talking about, or they're not living up to what they're going to talk about?
Um, it's easier for the individual to recognize it, but it's helpful as an advisor or outsider to ask the right questions.
Okay.
So, so asking the right questions will get you to, why are you in this business,
Hmm.
and what are you really trying to accomplish, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's an odd question, but like when we script out the conversation, like I said, when you scale, you've got to go and create things that are repeatable and straightforward. But at the same time, if you're if you're too mechanical, you miss the soul of that conversation. You miss the
Hmm.
kind of soul of why you're in here. So from my perspective as somebody who helps small businesses, those conversations need to be productive to surface what the business is trying to do with money
Hmm.
and how we can help them use it really well. But it's absolutely right. When some of my team would have a conversation with with a small business, and they would map out here's the money you're going to borrow, here's what you said you want to invest in, here's what you're going to return on that investment.
Hmm.
It doesn't look good. It looks like the loan is going to be more expensive than the return on the investment. So you probably don't want to do this.
Hmm.
If you then hear somebody say, but I still want to borrow the money, right? Which happened many, many times.
Hmm. Hmm.
My coaching and what they would do would be to say, well, hold on a second. This math doesn't work. Why are you really borrowing this money? Why are you really doing this? What are you
Hmm.
really going to do?
Right.
You'd always discover there's more.
Hmm.
Sometimes, and on occasion, somebody would be hiding something, right? Oh, well, actually, I owe somebody. They're going to shut my business down if I don't get this money. Blah blah. Oh, well, you should have said so because if that's the case,
Yeah. Yeah.
borrowing it keeps your business running. The ROI is a lot bigger than just
Correct.
what I just.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
in
I
other
think that's
cases,
amazing.
yeah, in other cases, they wouldn't really know for sure. They'd be like, well, I think I need this. I think I want this. And they would start to kind of break it down and realize that, oh, there was something else in their gut that was telling them, hey, there's more opportunity over here, more opportunity
Hmm.
over there. But, you know, what I found is that conversation is what really made the difference. It wasn't so much that the guy walked in saying, I need money.
Huh.
Uh, and then he may come up with it himself and figure out what the payoffs are, not and decide that it's not worth it, and then fall apart. But if he's got an advisor or somebody who's thinking it
Who can
about
help?
his
Yeah.
perspective, who's actually helping him, he or she will say, "Oh, that doesn't work for me. I got to fix something before I borrow this money." Or, "Oh yeah, well, really, it's more than that. It's this, this, and this." And then when they realize, "Oh, it's more than the thing I just said," they're like, "Oh, let me rethink my whole plan. Actually, I need a little bit more, or I need to take less now, and I'll take more later." Whatever it is, that whole thought process is where we were helpful.
Hmm.
And that's the whole thought process that you may lose if you're trying to scale with a pure and clean mechanical approach is
Okay.
you miss what was the purpose of this business? The purpose of this business was not to just go and put money in people's hands. It was
But that's what many people believe, right? That the purpose
yeah,
of business is, especially with the young generation that is coming into entrepreneurship now. A
yeah,
lot of them, are holding on to that concept that it's quick money. It's let's just find an
yeah,
investor. Let's like
yeah,
find a bank and just tell them that this is something big that we are coming up, life
yeah,
transformation, and we'll get the money.
yeah,
And we see so many, I'm sure you're also seeing that. And then they're
yeah, yeah,
building on to
absolutely.
the pressure that,
Yeah,
there is so much of pressure on them to live up to that expectation, and slowly businesses fail. So what should
yeah.
one do to balance that?
Well, I'll give you an example I'm working on recently is a business, and it can be in a big business or a small business. I coach both entrepreneurs and executives, and if you're out there looking to drive profit and drive growth, that's good, right? People I know are well trained now. We've got these fantastic tools to help us do analytics and understand, look, I can make this small change. I can put in a small incentive and maybe I'll give an incentive to my customers or my prospects to click here to do this, and I'll get more ending up in the revenue bucket. So I'm dealing with a client today who's actually done that historically for like years and years. So they had this wonderful product, maybe I don't know, 20 years ago.
Mm.
And it was really valuable at the time. And they started building and grow their business. And they learned that they could actually create these very mechanical incentives to get more customers to use the product a certain way and get more customers into their thing. And this math-based approach, right? Test, see the incremental impact, see the dollars you gain, apply it, is really baked into their culture. But over the last 20 years, the landscape and the competitive dynamics have shifted. The
Mm.
product itself
Right,
has updated its value proposition. And today, it's very empty calories. They're still getting some benefit from moving customers down this path. But, in my perspective, it's almost like playing a video game. Like they're playing a video game, they know all the ways to win the video game. So they're moving the customers around. But when you take one step back, you're like, but why should the customer be happy with any of this?
mm.
And all they can really say is, well, they're happy they got that incentive, but then they stuck with the product long enough for us to earn our money back on the incentive. And
Mm.
then what happens to a customer who's stuck with the product long enough for you to earn your money back? They didn't stick that much longer afterwards. So you didn't actually create value for them. You just tricked them into staying longer. That's not the approach. In fact, every one of these business leaders really needs to make sure they're making sure that customers are getting value out of the
Right.
product,
Yeah.
right?
And that is
And
more
that,
important, the value that, like you said, that is the
yeah,
most important. And most of us, we feel it's like we think about the purpose, we think about the money, but the value addition that you're adding in is so important.
yeah. And if you aren't creating value for somebody, you might be able to make money. So
Mm.
I've seen it, but it doesn't lend itself to be a sustainable business. It doesn't lend itself to staying around for that long. So that the value has to be, one, real. And the thing that I found most powerful, and back to the point on kind of scaling without losing your soul, is you've got to remember that purpose. You've got to
Mm.
communicate that purpose. And in fact, you've got to build your business around that purpose, not just around the profit that you're going to earn from it. Now,
Mm.
definitely have to make a profit as a business so that you can sustain yourself. But if you're not talking about the purpose in your business, in your meetings as the owner or as any executive or leader, um, you'll miss out on that opportunity. Easily find yourself chasing profit without purpose.
Okay, I love that. The way you said the chasing profits without any purpose. And that's what many of the people do, right? So, what are some of the things, or I should say, habits or qualities that you feel, at least if you could name three such qualities that people should have in them so that they can scale up their business without selling their soul, where they can lead with a purpose, not just with profits? What are three such habits you feel?
So I call these principles,
Okay.
and I would call them in my book, I call them the underdog principles.
Okay.
Very specific to if you have a business or if you have a role. The
Okay.
first one is know your positioning. All right. Positioning is what differentiates you from the rest of the market or anybody else. And this doesn't have to be a very complicated or unique thing. You don't have to be the only person in the world who does X, Y, and Z. In fact, in a lot of small businesses, your differentiation is your location. Where are you located? Who is around you? Um, but know your differentiation. Know in terms of positioning who you serve and more importantly, who you don't serve. So knowing the
Yeah.
boundaries at where you really want to play
Okay. I like
and
that. Yeah.
using them in your decisioning allows you to stay focused on having the biggest impact on the people you choose to serve.
Hmm.
The second one is proximity. Right? Stay close to your customer and their journey. Know your customer's behaviors. Have empathy for your customer through that journey. Uh, because a lot of times, you don't have information about what they want. You don't have them immediately there available to you to ask.
Hmm.
And if your choices are, hey, I'm going to go do a survey or I'm going to observe, those are good if you have the time and capacity. But it's even better if you really deeply understand your
Yeah.
customer
Yeah.
because you'll find, you do a survey, you're not really getting data on what they want. You're getting data on what they say they want. You're getting broad representation. You're only asking a couple of questions, not the contextual stuff. Your actual personal understanding of customers can take you a lot further.
True.
And then lastly, purpose, right? Put that purpose um, on paper for yourself. It doesn't have to be
No.
shared with the world, but the exercise of writing it out and knowing why am I doing this actually is really productive for guiding you to being a better leader, communicating better, and building a better product and satisfying your customers. Even if, as I met many of my small business friends, some of us owners who are friends, their purpose isn't complicated. I'm going to go save the world or any of this stuff. It's I chose this business path because I want to be my own boss or I want to have
Yeah. I
my
think many
own
of us do
control of my
that.
domain. And if you write that up and you say, this is my purpose,
Yeah.
by the way, I still need to make profit, I still need this, but I was here because I wanted control over my own schedule. I wanted, A, B, and C other things. Then the decisions that you have to make prevent you from compromising your purpose because just because you know it,
Hmm. Hmm.
a simple example of somebody who has left consulting industry and then decided to be an independent consultant, right? Know a ton of these guys. They didn't leave because they wanted to make even more money as an independent consultant. Most of them left because they wanted a different lifestyle. They wanted to
Hmm.
be able to do some practices that are different from what the big firm did or whatever it might be. They weren't in it for the reasons that they would have been in it for a big company. They were in it
Hmm.
for independence, um, you know, whatever they found interesting. And if you lose sight of that, you then find out that you're making decisions the way that
Yeah.
big company did, or
Yeah.
you're making decisions to take on work because you're afraid of not having work and you're motivated by the wrong factors. They end up burning out, right? Or not doing work that they find interesting anyway because they
True.
forgot to, you know, stick with their purpose.
Oh, I love those principles and the way you named it. That these are not habits and qualities; they are more of a principle, and that's I like that. And it connects us back to our topic. That how do you scale without losing your soul? Because that's all about the principles that you hold close to.
Yes.
So, Shri, if there was one advice that you would like to give the audience, and help that will help them to succeed at whatever they are doing, what would that advice be from your end?
Um, my favorite piece of advice for anyone who is kind of building and growing and trying to be a better person is ask for help.
Wow,
It's a really,
we
really
often
tough.
don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really tough thing for an entrepreneur or even a young business leader to say, "Hey, look, I need help with X."
Hmm.
And um, when I say ask for help, it's not ask for help because you're struggling, but
Yeah.
if you want to go accomplish something, if you want to go get something done, when you bring more people and you can get something done that's bigger. And if you're out there saying, hey, I want to do something, I want to start a business, I want to grow my business, and you're spending all of your time working on your own,
Mm.
you'll do something, I'm sure. But bringing more people in is challenging. They're going to tell you what's wrong with
Yeah.
the product. They're going to tell you they don't believe in you. They're going to tell you all kinds of things that you're probably not comfortable with, but they're also going to open your eyes to things that you're not seeing yourself.
Yeah.
So ask
Those
for
blind
help bringing
spots
people
that
in.
we all have.
Yeah, yeah, we all have them.
Yeah. And it's nice to have an outer perspective, like you said.
Yeah.
Wow. And you bring that outer perspective. I mean, even now today when you spoke, there were so many of the things that you mentioned, like, don't just run behind profits. It's also so much got to do with your purpose. So I think all in all, uh, with the experience that you bring in, I really liked how you chose this topic, and you've really done so much of justice to it, Sri. I mean, I think there would be so much more to tap into you and to get from your learning. So, this book, Unconvention, what is this book about?
So it's written from my personal perspective in history,
Mm.
and it's based on a lot of learnings I had from helping these, 20,
Okay.
30,000 small businesses. We
Okay.
we we took applications from like 50,000, and they all had these different business cases they wanted to go and
Mhm.
implement. And in the US, we had during the pandemic, we had to lock down a ton of these small businesses,
Mhm.
and not everybody survived.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My first hypothesis was kind of more of a McKinsey style hypothesis. Did you have a good business strategy? If you had a good business strategy, you succeeded. If you didn't
Yeah.
have a business strategy, you didn't. And digging into it, I found I was just, it was not about, I wouldn't say it wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about the strategy that you could write down on paper. What I
Mm.
learned was it was these small businesses who were saved by their customers who just absolutely loved them. These small businesses that fulfilled their purpose, that understood their customers,
Mm.
that were differentiated with this positioning that I was telling you about. They're the ones who the customers around them realized, I can't lose this business. I want to go serve them. I want them to serve me. So I'm going to go support them in their time of need. And so what I wrote was, I collected a lot of stories. I called a lot of these customers. I visited some. I took some of my own personal examples as well. And I said, look, there's all these different MBA frameworks that I learned. And these small businesses, the same rules apply, the same frameworks apply to them, but they were able to outperform or succeed, not because they followed the big company playbook, but because they follow these three principles
Mm.
even when applying these frameworks. And of course, the small business didn't even know the frameworks, right? Because they're not sitting there taking MBAs and working for McKinsey for years. But the book then has these wonderful MBA and big corporate frameworks. They have
Okay.
stories about small businesses and how their choices lay them out to be successful or not in these particular situations around pricing, around marketing, around customer loyalty, operations, all kinds of different aspects of running a business.
So definitely
Um,
worth the read, huh? So is it
oh,
available on Amazon or?
yeah, it's available on Amazon, Kindle hardcover, and you can find it or on my website, sri-kaza.com.
Wow, that's great. So thank you so much, Sri Kaza, for joining us. It's been such an honor to have you here and for you to speak about these things. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Pyle.
Thank you. And this one's for our listeners. This is Sri Kaza and Payal Nanjiani wishing you loads of success in your career life. God bless.